Greetings everyone, and today I have a quick topic that's been on my mind for quite some while. I wanted to hold off on it, sleep on it a little bit till I was confident in my, position on it, and I believe I've reached that point. Today I'm going to talk about the unspoken downsides of getting the wall. By that I mean once you get your opponent sandwiched between yourself and the wall, typically that's discussed in Tekken terms as an absolute undisputed advantage. And generally once we get a new character, one of the major questions that get asked is how good is their wall carry, how good is their wall game, how good is their wall pressure, do they perform better on walled stages versus wall-less stages. And generally it is thought of that getting your opponents back to the wall is an undisputed advantage in your favor. Well, I don't know if the things that I'm going to discuss today are going to prove that wrong. I kind of don't think so, but still, there are a lot of downsides to getting the wall that I don't see being discussed nearly enough. So first of all, I'd like to excuse myself because this is not my Tekken pad, so I might drop a lot of things while I'm trying to showcase them. But first let's talk about why the wall is actually good, or the situations at which getting the wall is definitely an advantage to you. First of all, if we discuss super bread and butter combos with King, I should back away a little bit. Typically, this is the bread and butter combo that's impossible to drop, and it's 63 damage. If I, however, instead of doing the regular ender, I carry to the wall with forward 2-1, and then I do this, I'm going to get 70. So that's 70 extra damage. Now King doesn't get actually positional advantage after that wall throw. The opponent can actually forward roll out of all options. Even if you do get something, you're at a side wall situation, which I'm going to talk about later. But nevertheless, that's a King thing, not a Tekken thing. So if you carry your opponent to the wall at the end of your combo, sorry, that's not the correct thing to do. Typically, you get more damage and you get buffs to your Oki because, you know, when they're trying to get up, certain options are not as readily available to them. Their back roll, or like their back get up, is not going to carry them very far, and when they tech roll, they're going to tech roll into traps that in many situations are not otherwise possible out in the open. So that's definitely an advantage in your favor. However, once we're at the wall, generally the advantage that you get is that you can backdash, you can create whiffs, and whiff punish, while your opponent, in this instance Lydia, cannot. That is definitely a plus. Also, otherwise normally not super rewarding moves, for example forward 2-1, usually out in the open it's only 37 damage. Near the wall, it all of a sudden becomes a launcher with 73 damage. Same thing goes for forward 4, for example CD 1+2, and other moves as well, such as this. So that is definitely a plus. That is definitely something in your favor, but in most cases, these moves, they're kind of like slow, like forward 4, CD 1+2, maybe not in the case of this, but this will come into practice a little bit later. I'm going to talk about that. And finally, you get access to the wall bounce mechanic, which is also a launcher out in the open if the wall is nowhere near you. These moves, which are wall bounce launchers, will not get you this big of a reward. So these are all definitely benefits. Well, like I said, let's just discuss for a second the downsides that I was able to accumulate about getting your opponents back to the wall. So I'm King now and I got cornered. First of all, how difficult is it to actually get out of this situation? Well, first of all, you get access to wall jumps. Now, depending on which character you play, your wall jump might be not so good, but a lot of characters have actually quite amazing wall jumps, and some of them are relatively low risk. Now, King's is not very rewarding, but it's relatively safe because you're either going to get floated out of this, which is not the end of the world, or if they block it, you're on the ground and like you're not eating a launch. You're not eating like 70 damage for attempting this. Other characters like Armor King, yes, if it gets ducked or if it whiffs or something, you're back turned and you're sandwiched between them and the wall and you're like going to die. But when you attempt it, you're either going to hit them or you're going to land behind them. So wall jumps are available to you depending on your character. They could be good, they could be not so great. A second aspect that's not super utilized is utilizing broken throws to escape the wall. For example, King's 1+3, even on break, I am out of the wall. It's 12 frames, it's relatively safe to throw out, and I don't care if they break it or not, I'm out of the wall. A lot of other characters have similar properties on a lot of other throws, and you can escape the wall that way. Second, once you get your opponent sandwiched like this, they're going to become much more alert. Even if they're not the super sidesteppy type, they're going to start trying to escape the wall by sidewalking. Now, you might argue, okay, this is my chance to use homing moves like forward 4 from King and whatnot, but the thing is, the other thing people do is they start getting jabby, they start getting, counter hit fishy, they start trying to like eat you for dinner before you have them for lunch. Or the other way around, whatever, you got what I mean. So if you try to go for your forward 4 and whatever, they might counter hit you. And the thing is, and I'm going to elaborate on this a second later, your combo damage, if you counter hit them, in this case if Lydia counter hits me as King, her combo damage is going to be nowhere near what I'm going to do to her if I land my counter hit. So that's actually going to be skewed in my favor, and I'm going to discuss this a little bit later. Again, further, like, let's say benefits is you get, as the person who's sandwiched with your back to the wall, you get an extra layer of armor on your lows. For example, this is a low from Lydia. Generally, if I block it, I only get a wall standing 4. And if I low parry it out in the open, I can get somewhere in the realm of 50 damage. Well, out here, this is the absolute best I was able to come up with. This is 38. This is less than I get out in the open. Even worse, if she goes for a launch punishable low, this out in the open, sorry, this is not optimal. Well, I don't doubt any of this is optimal. But this out in the open gets me 70, and here it gets me 60. Now, maybe there are like other things you could do here, but I believe this is like the bread and butter thing that you're going to do. I doubt you're going to be able to get more damage than you get out in the open. So they can fish for counter hits, and their reward is going to be bigger than yours. They're going to do lows, and their reward is going to, like your reward for blocking or low parrying is going to be even lower. And generally, no matter what launcher, what conventional launcher you land on them, like for example the hop kick, we just established it gets King, if we're discussing bread and butter combos, it gets him 63, out by the wall, this is like the realistic thing in terms of bread and butter. It's 51. It's 12 damage less. This, I believe, you get even less, because generally I think this is the most that you're going to be able to do. This is even more sad when we discuss counter hits, because if I realize that my opponent is going to try to interrupt me, and I interrupt them first, just like I said, you're going to struggle to do more than this. This is 38 damage, and I believe like if you do the absolute maximum, you get like 39 with something like this. This is nothing compared to the 60 something you get out in the open typically. Whereas if Lydia gets a launch on me with a counter hit now, she carries me all the way to the other wall, collects something in the realm of like 70 damage at the very least, plus the buff to the O key on wake up. So generally what I discussed about combos, that the wall coming at the end of it is more beneficial to you, applies here as well. So like, I don't think this gets like talked about enough, and you get stuff like sidewall situations. I should turn counter hit off. Sorry. And you get stuff like this. I got nothing because it's a sidewall, and you get, you know, fucked up over your combos left and right, which forces you to go for like setups like this. I see, for example, Batty doing something like that, so he sets up like tech roll, tech catches and whatnot. So like, even if we're trying to discuss you know, wall bounces, generally even the wall bounce, like from point blank you get 61, but if we're a little bit further away, stand and approach, I get more than that. I believe I get, come on, like I said, not my Tekken pad, I apologize. Once again. I get 69, which is definitely more. Same applies to this. To the point where landing a wall splat is more rewarding than landing a wall bounce. So once your opponent is really sandwiched between you and the wall, your damage is not that generally buffed. You get these things for sure, like wall splatting with forward 2-1, wall splatting with this, moves that are otherwise not launchers all of a sudden become launchers near the wall, which is definitely what you should now go for if you block a launch punishable low. But generally, there are these, like I discussed, aspects of like disadvantage if you get your opponents back to the wall, and I don't see them getting talked about that much. Like this while standing 2-2 thing that I just like talked about with King, for example. Armor King doesn't have access to that, and he has to do something else. So I don't see many people talking about this. I generally see the wall presented as an absolute undisputed advantage, and I don't think it is. Definitely the ability to backdash something and whip punish with this into huge damage is a huge plus. But aside from that, there are a lot of aspects where the opponent that has their back to the wall is way more dangerous, because like I said, if I land a hop kick, I get 50, whereas if they land a hop kick, they get way more because they're further away from the wall. So generally, it's almost ideal for you to be further away from the wall and not like completely sandwiching your opponent between you and the wall. So I don't know. I thought this was interesting to talk about, the downsides of getting the wall. Maybe certain characters get different rewards on stuff, but I don't know, I play 2 characters and it's like consistent across both of them. So I don't know, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you all in the